In this lesson, you'll learn useful business English for giving feedback, coaching colleagues, and developing team performance. Let's begin. Phrase 1. Set the tone. Set the tone. Meaning: to establish the mood or standard for a conversation or activity. Example: let's set the tone for an open discussion by listening carefully and focusing on solutions. The beginning of a conversation often influences everything that follows. Setting the tone means showing people how you expect them to communicate and behave. A manager can set a respectful, honest, or positive tone through their words, attitude, and willingness to listen before discussing difficult feedback. Now repeat, set the tone. Phrase 2. Acknowledge the effort. Acknowledge the effort. Meaning: to show that you recognize the work someone has put into something. Example: before discussing the revisions, I want to acknowledge the effort you put into this presentation. People are usually more receptive to feedback when they know their work has been noticed. Acknowledging the effort does not require you to say that every result was successful. It simply recognizes the time, energy, or care involved and creates a more balanced foundation for the conversation. Now repeat, acknowledge the effort. Phrase 3. Offer constructive feedback. Offer constructive feedback. Meaning: to give helpful comments intended to improve future performance. Example: I'd like to offer some constructive feedback on how the client meeting was handled. Constructive feedback is specific, respectful, and focused on improvement. It should explain what was effective, what could change, and why the change matters. Use this phrase to signal that your purpose is to help someone develop rather than simply criticize their past work. Now repeat, offer constructive feedback. Phrase 4. Point out a gap. Point out a gap. Meaning: to identify something important that is missing or below expectation. Example: I need to point out a gap between the project brief and the final recommendation. A gap can exist in quality, knowledge, communication, process, or expected results. Pointing it out means describing the difference clearly so it can be addressed. In a feedback conversation, focus on observable facts and impact instead of making a general judgment about the person. Now repeat, point out a gap. Phrase 5. Reinforce good practice. Reinforce good practice. Meaning: to encourage effective behavior so that it continues. Example: regular recognition helps reinforce good practice across the entire customer support team. Feedback is not only for correcting problems. Reinforcing good practice means noticing effective behavior, explaining why it works, and encouraging people to repeat it. This helps team members understand which actions create value and make strong performance more consistent over time. Now repeat, reinforce good practice. Phrase 6. Give someone room to improve. Give someone room to improve. Meaning: to allow a person time and opportunity to develop their performance. Example: the goals should be challenging, but we also need to give her room to improve. Development rarely happens immediately after one conversation. Giving someone room to improve means setting clear expectations while allowing time to practice, learn, and make adjustments. It also suggests that a manager should provide support and avoid judging the final outcome before reasonable progress is possible. Now repeat, give someone room to improve. Phrase 7. Raise the bar. Raise the bar. Meaning, to increase the expected standard of quality or performance. Example, the new service guidelines will raise the bar for response time and customer care. When you raise the bar, you ask for a higher level of performance than before. The phrase can refer to stronger quality, faster delivery, better communication, or more ambitious results. Leaders should explain why the new standard matters and what support will help people achieve it. Now repeat. Raise the bar. Phrase 8. Lead by example. Lead by example. Meaning, to demonstrate the behavior or standard you expect from other people. Example, managers can lead by example by asking for feedback on their own performance. People notice what leaders do, not only what they say. Leading by example means personally following the standards you ask others to follow. It builds credibility because the team can see that expectations about preparation, communication, accountability, or respect apply to everyone. Now repeat. Lead by example. Phrase 9. Delegate with clear expectations. Delegate with clear expectations. Meaning, to assign responsibility while explaining the required result and boundaries. Example, to avoid confusion, delegate with clear expectations about quality, timing, and decision-making authority. Delegation works best when a person understands the outcome deadline, available resources, and level of authority. Clear expectations provide direction without controlling every detail. This phrase is useful when discussing how managers can transfer responsibility while still creating the conditions for success. Now repeat. Delegate with clear expectations. Phrase 10. Hold someone accountable. Hold someone accountable. Meaning, to require a person to take responsibility for an agreed result or action. Example, we should support the team, but we must also hold each owner accountable for the deadline. Accountability means following through on a commitment and explaining the result. Holding someone accountable should involve clear expectations, regular check-ins, and fair consequences rather than unexpected blame. Use this phrase when responsibility has been agreed and progress needs to be reviewed honestly. Now repeat. Hold someone accountable. Phrase 11. Recognize a contribution. Recognize a contribution. Meaning, to show appreciation for the value someone added to a result. Example, I'd like to recognize Maya's contribution to resolving the issue before the launch. Recognizing a contribution connects appreciation to a specific action or result. It is more meaningful than a general thank you because the person understands what they did well. This phrase is useful in meetings, performance reviews, and team messages when giving credit for valuable work. Now repeat. Recognize a contribution. Phrase 12. Turn feedback into action. Turn feedback into action. Meaning, to use comments or advice to make a practical improvement. Example, our next step is to turn the customer feedback into action before the next release. Feedback creates value only when it leads to a useful change. Turning feedback into action means selecting priorities, defining specific steps, and checking whether the improvement occurs. This phrase can describe personal development, team performance, product decisions, or any situation where comments should produce visible progress. Now repeat. Turn feedback into action. Excellent work. You have practiced 12 expressions for giving feedback, supporting development, and strengthening accountability. Choose 3 phrases and use each one in a sentence about a real workplace conversation. Practicing with a realistic situation will help you remember the language and use it naturally. Continue with the next part for more business English speaking practice.